Watch on the Brooklyn and me I say New York. Bad man Benny. You know what the thing are. Me I say Caribbean Power Jam. Some boy if you know. Simple as I represent. One not government. Right now sound up. Sound up. Bad sound up play. Caribbean Power Jam. I go bust them big sound up, bad sound up play. Caribbean Power Jam, I go bust them big Benny. One knock, one clap, no time at all. You know fire one pop with repeated shot automatic your lap. Head a roll like jelly and chop. Dub plate inna the body and stop. Triple dub plate pan heavy sound clash Benny. Play about the chop. Sound up, sound a go day. Caribbean Power Jam, I go bust them big sound up, sound a go day. Caribbean Power Jam, I go bust them big alright, Benny, tell them no fear, man. Are you a kill sound from day one? Oh, them fit disrespect. Caribbean Power Jam when we a kill from day one. Them coulda big like King Kong. Benny a fire shot, man a fling bomb. Pump pick off like sick man. Them no fi bad fly. And them gyal and pitch pan. So tell them sound up, bad sound up play. Caribbean Power Jam, I go bust them big sound up, bad sound up play. Caribbean Power Jam, I go bust them big. Yeah man, you know what the thing there now, they do it London boss, simple as I represent for the whole Caribbean Power Jam family. Yeah, man, Brooklyn, I'm here saying you,
Yes. Once again, I want to welcome everybody to the gallery here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio. We rock with you on another Tuesday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio. So it's the gallery. Make sure you download the Caribbean Power Jam Radio app to your tablet as well as to your phone, so you can keep it locked to the show and all the shows here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio. So we thank and appreciate everybody that's locked and tuned in this evening. Big up to everybody out there. We definitely appreciate it. So once again, the number for the studio is 718-393-5385. So we'll open up the phone line later on. I got a lot of things to talk about today as we are coming to the close of October, which many people know is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but it's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month as well. So we've come into the close of this month, and we have quite a few guests that will be in studio and online talking with us this evening about domestic violence awareness. So you definitely want to tune in and let your friends know about what's going on. So once again, we thank everybody for tuning in and keeping it locked to the gallery this evening right here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio. So once again, number for the studio is 718-393-5385. Also, make sure you're following the gallery, DAGALLERY. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Mixcloud, as well as on YouTube. So we thank everybody that is watching us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at this time. So we thank and appreciate everybody. So once again, the gallery is here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio on another Tuesday. A very stormy Tuesday here in the Northeast. New York, we got drenched with a lot of rain earlier in the day, but they expect a little bit more, but it's calmed down as of right now. So hopefully, at least for those of us in New York, will be able to enjoy the remainder of our evening rain free. Of course, the rain is always a good thing, especially California. They were going through a drought, and then all of a sudden they had some unprecedented record rains that came in. So yeah, definitely rain is definitely a blessing, so definitely appreciate it when it comes in. So hopefully the rain didn't damp anybody's day here in New York or the Northeast. Mainly, the main problem is basically the flooding and things like that take place whenever it rains. And basically this from last year till this year, you know, been a lot of rainstorms. Not a lot of rain throughout the year period, but a lot of rainstorms here, and a lot of flooding. I know some people may have seen videos of a lot of things being flooded out, you know, throughout the storms that passed in the past year and a half or so. So a lot of things weather-wise is going on. But once again, everybody out there, hopefully you're enjoying your day. I want to say happy birthday to everybody that is celebrating their birthday today on this Tuesday, October 26th. I want to say happy birthday to Kimberly Little as well as to Barbara Maddox. I want to say happy birthday to Jackie Artist, wherever you dare. Big up yourself, Jackie, on your birthday. Big up yourself, Marvin Phoenix, as well. Two jammers, distinguished jammers, celebrating their birthdays concurrently today. Jackie and Marvin. Also want to say happy birthday to Christine James as well as to Ryan O'Neill. Say happy birthday to Latara Ragland as well as to Nalda Rodney. Also saying happy birthday to Winston Tulak as well as to Juanita. That's Bonita's daughter. So saying happy birthday to her. Also saying happy birthday to Chanella Anthony Barker as well as to Naraya Gerard. Saying happy birthday to Deborah Williams as well as to Tiffany Roberts. Saying happy birthday to Lyndon Cadigan as well as to Cherie White. Saying happy birthday to McCoy Melinda as well as to Susan Williams. Saying happy birthday to Kevin James as well as to Terrence Fisher. Also saying happy birthday to Kay Fortune as well as to Alice Belfont and Akita Ashley. So you all that I mentioned and many, many more that are out there that are celebrating your birthday, big up yourself on your birthday today, and hopefully you're enjoying your day, enjoying your birthday this evening. So once again, it's the gallery here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio. Once again, make sure you download the Caribbean Power Jam Radio app to your tablet as well as to your phones. You can keep it locked to the show and all the shows here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio once again. So once again, we thank you all for tuning into the gallery this evening. And we will continue on with our program this evening. I'll play a little bit of music, but we're going to get right into it when we come right back with our guests who are in the building. And then we have some online waiting to join us as well. So just continue to keep it locked to the gallery here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio. Of course, you know, we have that health tip that will be coming up later on in the program. And also, you know, the looking forward segment, you know, we at the end of the month. So what we're going to be doing is the winner's circle. There's still time to vote for your favorite of the songs that we played last week. And the winner will be declared during this program. And then we'll also be playing the winners from the looking forward segment from throughout this month as well. So once again, we thank you all for tuning into the gallery here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio. So continue to keep it locked right here as we continue to rock with you here on this station. So once again, big up to everybody that's out there listening, everybody that's out there live. I definitely appreciate everybody that shares and invites as well. So make sure you also are following once again the gallery on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Mixcloud as well. Instagram, all that good stuff. So good evening to everybody that is out there listening to the gallery here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio as we continue to move on with our program this evening. So once again, big up to Janet. See you out there. Good night to you, Sassy Hess, and good night to you, Nahali L as well. So everybody's out there ready to go on this evening, and good night to you, Martha, out there on the app. So once again, as a reminder, yes, just make sure you download that Caribbean Power Jam Radio app so you just keep it locked to the show here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio as we continue on and move on with our program this evening.
Wine and queen, yeah. Wine and queen, yeah. My man know what time it is. I ain't hard to please. Just make me bump my head, okay. Well, girl, how they worrying, but I don't know them. Since I dip and start rolling, I no second guess. I'll never be second best. I saying it with my chest. I never come second yet, and I feel like number two. But girl, we just never lose. Show them the red button shoes. Let me take a second just to show you a real number one, girl. A real number one, just to show you a real number one, girl. A real number one. I know my priorities. I have all the keys to my properties, okay. I does make my own money, so they count me.
The Gallery with Batman Benny.
I no second guess. I'll never be second best. I saying it with my chest. I never come second yet, and I don't pay my dues. Don't get anything confused.
The Gallery with Batman Benny.
I miss the fetting, I miss the juve. I want to break away and wind down low. I miss the drinking. If I fed day over day, we over there. Yeah. Man, anyway, it have a fed, you know that we there. We didn't fed so freaking long, so shall long we play. Yes. Anyway, it have a fed, you know that we there. Yeah. Grab your rum and knock your bottle today. We gon' make we name tell them. We outside, we partying non-stop, partying non-stop. We outside, my ticket stay non-stop. So just live we alone. It's drink if we a score. I can't party at home, and I go fet alone. You can't find me in a zone when they drop them on the road. On the road, so man, anyway, it have a fet, you know that we there. We didn't fet so freaking long, so shall long we play. Yes. Anyway, it have a fet, you know that we there. Yeah, grab your rum and knock your bottle today. We gon' make we name tell them. We outside, we partying non-stop, partying non-stop. We outside, my ticket stay non-stop.
Baby girl, when you push back that waist, you're telling me, girl, that you're ready for peace. Like you want your baby to have my face. So take your time, girl, when you push back that waist. When you push back that waist, 'cause I know you're trying to turn me on, and like you want me to. Just finish the motion, no. Yeah, take time, pushing back that waist, girl. And what you doing, giving me a little kiss, girl. I'm telling you, my blood close to my skin, girl. So careful, baby, pampers pricey. God, the way you make me feel when you whine on me, you should know, girl, I'm taken. So take it light with me, even if I'm afraid, or you will feel an explosion. And I know you're trying to turn me on, and like you want me to. Just finish the motion, no. Yeah, take time, pushing back that waist, girl. And what you doing, giving me a little kiss, girl. I'm telling you, my blood close to my skin, girl. So careful, baby, pampers pricey. Baby,
Yeah. Rhythm sets the mood, cotton clock all night. No care, yeah. Doing as I should, raise it up too loud. Sweating down the place. Body looking sweet, stand beneath my feet. Feeling hot, fly up, become a fan. Back that now behind the van. Jump up, too much jelly and she jam. Feel so good, feel the music good. Feel so good, music feels so good.
When we come to party, we behaving dirty like a boat are drunk and rocking, and we creating problems, by the right problems. Come let me drink and party all night, and we doing it for spite.
Still in the air, never coming down. Stay high above the ground. See the people everywhere. Don't tell us that we can't. Come we fly across the line. Sweating down the place.
Once again, thank you everybody for tuning into the Gallery this evening on Power Jam Radio, as we are here in the building as specified on another Tuesday, as we continue to rock with you. Thank everybody that's out there watching on Facebook, everybody on YouTube, everybody that's on Instagram. So big up to everybody that's out there. Once again, so as we mentioned, not too much music this evening. Got a lot to talk about, got a lot to get into. And we have our guests in the building and outside the building as well. and they are ready. So once again, number for the studio is 718-393-5385. So once again, we thank everybody for tuning in and keeping it locked to the gallery here at Caribbean Power Jam Radio. Make sure you download the Caribbean Power Jam Radio app to your tablet as well as to your phone so you can listen to this show and all the shows here on Caribbean Power Jam Radio. So as mentioned, this is we're coming to the close of Domestic Violence Month for this October. But of course, the awareness goes on 12 months throughout the year. But once again, this month was specified so that people can be aware of what is happening and what is going on. So we have our guests in the building, and no particular order, but I'll just go from my right all the way on down and introduce everybody. So I'm gonna tell my age and the age of the person that's right next to me. Not directly, but I have not seen her in maybe 33 years. So we'll put it like that. We'll put it like that. I have not seen her in like 33 years. So I'm gonna let her introduce herself first without giving away her full age. I just said 33 years. So 33 years plus whatever time we was in school before that.
Yes.
So.
Okay, we'll go with that. Good night, everyone. My name is Faye-Anne, aka Bajan Boom Young. As Ben jokingly mentioned a couple seconds ago, we have known each other for about that 33 plus years since elementary school. What are we saying? PS 221? Yeah, PS 221. So we're not going to.
You went to 391 after that?
Yeah, 391 too. Yeah, right, definitely.
So, 33 years.
Yes, so about that 33 years. But I'm not going to disclose my age. I am the host for Purple Power, which is a domestic violence awareness and prevention event that we put on year to year.
And to her right.
Hi. So I am Nicole Sharpe. I am the founder and executive director of the Hurley Foundation for the Prevention of Domestic Violence. I'm named after my late mother.
And then to your right.
Hi, my name is Dionne Davis, and I am one of the board members of the Hurley Foundation. And me and Nicole work closely together with bringing prevention and awareness to domestic violence.
And then to her right.
Hey everyone, this is Unique. I am one of the co-hosts of Straight Talk. I have my own podcast. I'm 34 years old.
All right, so she's the only one. She's the only one that's gonna. So that's the age we're gonna all go with. Yeah. That 34. That's it.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
And without any, hopefully there's no technical difficulties, we have two people that are online as well. So we're gonna let them introduce themselves right now, and hopefully we can hear them.
Can I be heard?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Let me just adjust your mic a little bit, but go ahead, you can talk.
Okay. So, good evening. I am Tamar, Yisrael. I'm out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm not afraid to give my age. I am 39 years old, and I am a domestic violence survivor and a newly advocate.
So once again, we're talking to Tamar, and I believe you have one person with you as well. So we had to let her back in, but we'll get to her just now. So once again, this is Domestic Violence Month, October, as we come into the close of that month. And what I'm going to start off with at this time, I'm going to actually start off on the far right, because I know Unique has a unique story to tell. And I don't know how much of the story she'll get into, but the ending of her story is not the way that many people may expect it to end. But I'm going to let her tell her story. Actually, use that mic real quick. Swing that one. Yes, please.
All right, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so my name is Unique. Pretty much I am a domestic violence survivor. So around 2015, I was going through, a situation where I was dealing with a guy much older than me. I was 27 at the time, and he was 48. So pretty much, within the first year, everything was okay. So after the first year, I noticed, I went back to school, trying to further my education. He had lost his job. So So pretty much once he lost his job, he started drinking heavy. So in the midst of him drinking all the time, you know, first it started with the verbal abuse, the emotional abuse. Then after that, you know, a slap, a punch, then it became, you know, me being beat on. So to narrow down the story, pretty much, you know, after about, I can say 2 to 3 years of abuse, I got tired of it. You know, I kept trying to run. I kept trying to go to shelters. I kept, you know, trying to seek for help. But every time I would get him arrested, you know, they would let him right back out, and then the beatings would become worse. So pretty much, you know, without saying too much, because, you know, I have a book that's coming out. You can, you know, get it with the further details. As soon as I got out the domestic violence shelter and I finally moved into my own place that wasn't, you know, with him, pretty much I seen him and we got into a fight. A weapon was involved and I took his life. So being that I took his life, you know, I had to do 9 months in jail. I had to pretty much, you know, fight a case. I'd never been in jail before. I'd never been in no type of situation like this, which I never thought I would be in. Right. And, you know, it was horrible. Yes. So after, you know, fighting 9 months in jail, they called it like justifiable homicide. Right. Because they see that I had like a long history of domestic violence with him, reports, order of protections, everything. You know, I just feel like the system failed me. So after the 9 months, you know, I came home by the grace of God, and, you know, now I'm here. So, you know, pretty much that's my story.
And now we're gonna go over to Nicole Sharpe, who's the CEO of the Heather Hurley Foundation, as she just mentioned, and gonna let her tell her story. And I know your story is not as direct, but it also, with your story, it also lets people know that beyond the people that are actually involved, that those in the family and friends are also victims of what takes place.
Yes. So I'm what you would call a child survivor of domestic violence, even though I'm older. Now, I was raised just seeing violence all the time. That was part of my life. And my earliest memories are of violence. I remember my father, when I was 3 years old, raping my mother. I didn't realize it was rape at the time, but only when I got to go to junior high school and have sex ed, I realized, oh my God, it was rape. So it just brought everything back. So my father would repeatedly just beat on my mother, and I would, because of that, I would want to commit suicide and just exit this place that I thought it felt like a prison, just growing up in a prison. So thankfully, I never got to commit suicide, and so I can tell my story today. But my father ended up shooting my mother to death in our home after beating her, like the worst beating he's ever given her. And it was actually on November 22nd, 1991. And my two siblings, they were 8 and 3 at the time, and we had to get out of the house, and it was very difficult. And I have to say, by the grace of God, literally, God speaking to me, guiding me out of the house. My father was even blinded and couldn't see us. We were able to get out. And from then, you know, our life was turned upside down. You know, being a ward of the courts, that's what we were called, orphans. We're treated like we were orphans, for real. And still had to push on and fight to live this life, and still, you know, despite the trauma that we experienced. And I'm just glad to say, by the grace of God, once again, that we're stable individuals right now, able to tell our story.
Then next to Dionne
Davis.
I'm mixing the two names up. Actually, you could use that one.
Okay, good night. So, over 10 years ago, I was married to my son's father, and he had a drinking problem. He hid it for a while. I didn't know that he had a drinking problem, and after we got together, it became, you know, worse and worse. Like, he would come home, fall down drunk, and whenever he would be drunk, that's when he would, you know, accuse me of cheating. And if I'm on the phone with my cousin or somebody, I'm on the phone with a man. And one time I was on the phone with my cousin, and he came in, and I was like, you know, was like, girl, let me get off the phone because I don't want to deal with it. She's like, no, I need to stay on the phone because I need to hear what's being said. And he was, laying threats and stuff. And I was like, girl, she's like, no. She's like, I'm not taking what he's saying lightly. So she was listening and paying attention and recording what was happening. And another time, I picked him up from work. When I got to the job where he was working, he came out. He was fine. He's like, let me go inside and get my stuff. He went inside. By the time he came back out, his eyes were glassy and he looked off. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, nothing's wrong. He became very agitated. Anyway, we were supposed to be going to a wake. I was like, we're not going to I can't take you to a wake look like this. So we were arguing, of course, driving home. And when I parked the car and, we got out, he tried to swing on me, but he was so drunk that he missed and he fell and he hit his face on the ground. And he passed out on the ground. And these things are just so it's beyond just being embarrassed. It's it's traumatizing. It is traumatizing. Yes. At first I didn't think I was in a situation of domestic violence because it was more of the verbal. It was more of the drunken outbursts. But when I met Nicole, honestly, and me and her, we just clicked. We became like sisters automatically. And in being around Nicole and we started to do this work together, like off the beginning, we just started. And I remember one day, it was the first time we did a domestic violence event at the beauty salon. And you had me come and do poetry, and I broke down because that's when I really realized what I was in. Because I kept it quiet. I didn't want nobody to know. You're embarrassed, I didn't want nobody to know. But as much as I thought I was keeping it quiet, I was not, because my friends knew. They weren't speaking about it, but they knew, because he would come places drunk. He would show up drunk, We would go out, and he would, like, the calls and the text message. I remember one time my friend took my phone, and she's like, give me your phone. She's like, no, you're not doing this. And by the time I got my phone back, the amount of calls, the amount of accusations, the names that I was called on the voicemails, and I tried to behave like, it was tough and it didn't bother me. But it really did tear me down. And I got to the point where I was afraid, because he started making threats about taking his life, taking my life. If he can't have me, he'll kill everybody. And I tried to act like I wasn't, afraid. I didn't want him to have that power to know that, I was afraid, but I really was. It was like sleeping with the enemy, You had to sleep with one eye open. You didn't know what was coming when, and it just, people may think it has to be that they're beating on you every day. No, it's not. That's the obvious, but there are other ways that they, abuse you, and I just want people to know, don't think when they're doing these things to you, the threats, like, oh, he don't mean that, or, the act constantly accusing you of things, or when you go out, from the time you leave the house, they're ringing down your phone constantly. That's not love. It's not love at all. So please just know that those are definitely red flags.
And as you mentioned, part of your story, which is important to note, that it's not just the physical, because as people speak about the awareness, and I know that initially it was just called domestic violence, and then turned to domestic abuse, because beyond just the physical, as you mentioned, you have the verbal. There's also things that even those on our age, but definitely those younger, there's a term that I heard earlier this month, social abuse, just following your social media, like stalking on social media, just making sure, checking your status, who's commenting and who's liking, and as you mentioned, those are signs that build up to something else. So, there's signs that people have to learn to look for before, once again, it gets to the physical aspect of it. Once again, so jumping real quick to Faye-Anne.
Good night once again. My name is Faye-Anne Young. I am, like I said before, the host for Purple Power. Back in 2014, Dionne and Nicole approached me to host Purple Power for them, because I used to be on another radio station, and I would MC and host for a DJ. And little did they know that I too had a background with domestic violence. So I come from both ends of the spectrum of domestic violence. I come from the spectrum with Nicole as a child experiencing domestic violence, and then becoming an adult and also going through my own personal domestic violence abuse. I'll try to make it nice and compact. As a child, I was 12 years old. It was my 13th birthday weekend over at my favorite aunt's house with a couple of my other cousins. And we rented a van. We were going to City Island for my birthday. It's a big thing. Family was ready. And we were in the bedroom playing, one of the bedrooms playing, and I thought my uncle and my aunt were laughing with each other because my aunt had this really high-pitched voice. So I'm like, she's out in the kitchen, they're laughing. And as we're playing, I stopped playing, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like that's not a laugh. Something's wrong. Myself and one of my older cousins, we ran out there, and as we got out there, we saw my uncle, like, beating my aunt down. My aunt is about 5'3", 5'2". My uncle used to compete in Mr. Universe, so he was a bodybuilder. So those blows that he was giving to my aunt were blows. And that all transpired because she found out that he was an adulterer, he was cheating, and she confronted him, and he just didn't like it. We pulled my aunt into the bedroom, closed the door, and my uncle did follow us in there, kicked the door down. He had a wooden baseball bat in his hand, and he basically told us, I'm gonna kill you guys. Leave. And my aunt kept trying to push us to leave, and I told my other cousins, run and get help, and I stayed there, and he kept saying, Faye, if you don't move, I'm gonna kill you. And my aunt said, Faye, leave. She turned me around and said, she looked at me and she said, leave, because he's gonna kill you. And I was like, I don't want to leave you. And she's like, you have to go. I finally ran downstairs. We called the ambulance. We called the police and everything. My uncle was arrested. This wasn't the first time, but it was the first time that I experienced it. And they did find guns and ammunition in the house, in the closet, right outside that same bedroom door. So he was definitely determined, and he was going to kill us. So as a child, I saw that and I was like, oh, never, not me. That'll never happen to me. I wish, I wish he would. No, it did happen to me. My son's biological father, my son was a couple of months old. He wasn't even 1 year old yet. And he wanted to take him away for a weekend. I'm like, no problem. We were having our issues. We weren't living together at the time. I said, no problem. I figured that his idea of the weekend was going by his house with his mom. And he's like, no, pack some more clothes for him. We're actually going away for a whole week. And I'm like, a whole week where? And he's like, you don't need to know that. And I'm like, I kind of do. He's under 1 year old. He's a baby. I need to know where you guys are going. So he's like, well, I'm taking him. He's mine too. I'm going to take him. So he attempted to climb out of the bathroom window. We lived on the first floor. I followed him. I was like, don't do that. You're going to hurt the baby. Let's just go. So we walked back to the front door, and he's like, I'm leaving. I'm like, just give me the baby back and you can just go on your own. And he's like, well, if I can't leave with my son, he's not staying here with you. And he proceeded to choke me out by the front door. I started fighting back, and then I stopped because my son was in his hand and I didn't want the baby to drop. Upon that, he saw the fear in my eye and the baby started crying. He put the baby down on the floor in the kitchen. He runs out the apartment door to another friend of his. They used to live in a building, and got a .38 and proceeded to come back to the door to try to shoot me in my head. And that's one of my experiences with domestic violence, because even after that I said, not again, but it happened again. The signs are, women do go back. We tend to go back. We've all lived it, we've endured it, we've survived it. We do go back multiple times until there is what we call that breaking point. Right. We do acknowledge the red flags, but we still go back because of the I'm sorries, it won't happen again. But we do just for some reason tend to go back until we get strong enough to be where we all are right now, to make a stand and then try to have information out there, prevention and awareness, so it doesn't happen to other people like it happened to us.
I just want to piggyback on what you said, Boom, about the sorry. Sometimes they're not sorry. Sometimes they try to make it seem like it's you. You're the one with the problem.
Right.
You're the one with the issue. You're crazy.
Yeah.
And then you start to wonder, maybe I am. Maybe I'm just overreacting. And, you know, so that's another gaslighting that they use. Yeah, because I've experienced that.
Yes.
So as we continue, because we're going to speak to Tamar and Tia, who are online as well. But as y'all was mentioned, the founders of the Heather Hurley Foundation, and you mentioned basically the background of, you know, the personal experience. But what was it that could have motivated you? I believe it's 10 years since you've been doing the Purple Power event. But with the foundation itself, what was it that motivated you to say, well, I'm going to actually do this to bring this awareness and, you know, play my part in what's going on?
My father was about to come out of prison, and I felt the need to write my story, and so I did. And as I wrote the story, I released it, and, you know, to let some people know that I wrote this story at my job, and it was well received. So then I said, people told me, you know, you should let people know more about your experience. So I decided to, at the job that Dionne and I are at, decided to set up some tables with free resources about domestic violence to educate the public there. We work at a hospital, so patients, employees, medical students, and it was well received by many. And then they wanted more, so then we did a show there, and we did it twice. And then Dionne and I said, let's do our own show outside of work, and that was when Purple Power was born. And
10 years strong, even throughout the pandemic. And we're going to speak about that because numbers went up with domestic violence during the pandemic. So it didn't affect you. You think that the pandemic would bring crime and certain things down, but even during that time, not just that, but, you know, crime just went up, you know, all over the place. So I'm gonna turn it over to Tamar real quick and Tia, who are online right now. If you could hear us, Tamar.
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry. Wow, listening to all those powerful stories. This would be my first time actually, you know, sharing my experience, and I'm still having a bit of a hard time because, like one of the sisters mentioned, for me, my situation wasn't necessarily physical. It was more verbal and emotional, and just coming to terms with the fact that that is an abuse, because like she had mentioned, you know, because you're not getting beaten on every day, you don't really consider it, or you feel like your situation is less than someone's that is, you know, getting physically beaten on. So with my story, back in 2010, I got into a relationship, and also what was mentioned, you know, about those red flags. I was warned. I was, you know, warned. I was warned. I can't, you know, sugarcoat it. I was warned about the individual that I ended up being with, and because I was not being shown that, and I was also, oh, that's not going to happen to me. He wouldn't dare do that to me, not me. I thought I was good. And, you know, time went on, and the red flags was there, the cuss out anytime I wouldn't do things that he wanted, or he, you know, he wouldn't get his way, or if he suggested something and I gave a suggestion that was of the opposite, you know, I got the major cuss out, you know, all types of, you know, B word, everything under the sun. And it was just like, what? Like, where is this coming from? And then it just kept escalating and escalating to where it was just a constant cuss out. And that chips away at your self-esteem, your self-worth, self-love. And then, you know, you start to second guess, like, am I these things? Like, what's really going on here? And so I ended up getting pregnant, and in that moment, I knew that I could no longer be with him in a physical sense. So I ended up leaving and moving back home with my family, but maintaining the relationship, because now that I'm pregnant, I want to keep my family together, as twisted as that may sound. I come from a single parent home, and I did not want that. I didn't want to be another statistic, raising my child. But knowing that I'm uncomfortable in this situation, but still trying to do all that I could to make it better. I felt that if I changed and I worked on me, it would make the situation better. Seeking counsel, praying, all types of things. And it didn't get better. It continued to get worse. And at this point, I was like a zombie, just there and just trying to get through the days. Constant text messaging and calls of what I'm not, what my worth is not. And I still kept trying to make it work, to keep my family together. And so then,
it's okay.
I ended up, we were in a car driving to BJ's, and I've had my oldest child at this point, and I'm looking on my phone. I'm sitting in the back. He's driving with his mother in the front, and I'm looking at some stuff for my child's birthday, and I get accused of communicating with another man. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm like, I showed my phone, like, see, this is what I'm doing. And we started to argue, and I just knew in my mind it was going to escalate. Mm-hmm. And so it did. He ended up pulling over, and I'm preparing myself. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. So whatever he got coming from me, I'm ready. And so he opened the back car door, and he started to swing on me. And so I started kicking back. I managed to get out the car, and I'm trying to walk away from the car. He's following behind me, screaming at me, and I turn around, and as soon as I turned around, he punched me dead in my face. We are in the middle of the BJ's parking lot. I remember my keys and everything just flying, wallet flying. His mother is screaming. There's people screaming at him to stop, and he wouldn't stop. And I guess because I wouldn't drop, I don't know, something inside of him just made him stop. And he got in the car. He wanted me to get back in the car, and I refused. And he left. And like a week later, I found out that I was pregnant with my second child. And so now I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Like, now I'm about to have another child, and this is crazy. So we did separate, and here I am again, feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have these two children by myself. I don't want to do this by myself, and I go back. And the second time he was physical with me, that was it for me. We had just ended a celebration, and we were heading home, and I said he wanted to get some smoothies, and I said, I don't think that's a good idea. The children haven't eaten for quite a while. Having the sweet stuff on their belly is not going to be a good idea. And so, of course, not wanting to listen to me, he gets the smoothies, they're drinking the smoothies, and then my youngest child begins to throw up in the car. So now he's screaming at me, he's upset, she's screaming because, she has throw up everywhere. So we park the car, we get out, and we're on a residential street. And then he gets out. I'm trying to get the kids out the car, and he's cussing me out. Then I'm holding the baby in my arms, and the oldest one is standing next to me. Then he begins to punch me in my face in front of all these men. I just could not believe, like, I don't know if I was more upset about him punching me or just the fact that there were a bunch of men standing there and nobody cared to help. So he walks off, you know, with my children. And I just turned to the guys like, wow, like, you just sit there? Didn't say nothing to this brother, nothing. From that point on, I was done. I was done because now you did it in front of my children. And that was the breaking point. It has not been easy. It has not been easy because when you still have to deal with someone that you have children with, it's very difficult, and I'm still trying to work through it. It's better because I have, you know, love for myself again, and I definitely try to teach that to my daughters, you know, because I have 2 girls, and I definitely let them know the do's and the don'ts as best I can. And like I said, it's a working process, but I am grateful for where I am today. And for me now, sharing my story and getting into the advocacy work is just to let people know that you're not alone. It's not your fault. No matter what. Although I was born, and I kept a lot of things to myself because I didn't want to hear the "oh, I told you so." And I didn't, you know, I really didn't. Once I started to let people know what was going on, there was a lot of support. And I'm just grateful for where I am today. And I'm thankful for this opportunity to share my story. And I hope that it helps someone.
Yes,
and that's the last part is, I guess, why everybody's here today, why everybody does, you know, even though it's a very difficult thing to talk about your personal story, you know, everybody that has a story is able to help somebody else that's in that situation, because as it was mentioned earlier, you know, not everybody does see the quote unquote red flags when they occur, but, you know, hopefully just hearing it from other people and just hearing from their experience. And, you know, you don't want anybody, you know, going through, because I'm just hearing the voices, I'm hearing basically as everybody telling their story. And I know being part of this activism, you basically do tell your story over and over again. Yeah. And it's probably never easier to tell your story over and over again, as you can tell, because, you know, the emotions are still there. But, you know, hopefully those that are hearing the emotions, you know, if they're going through a similar situation, they would be able to get out of that. As it was mentioned, we're about to get into our commercial break soon. So we'll let Tia, I believe she's on there, speak briefly before we get to the commercial break, and then we're going to come back. So for those that are listening to the gallery, I know we at this point the show, as you can do the health tip, we'll actually shift that to the second hour of the show. A lot of things will just be shifted on because this is once again an important topic. So of course a lot of things that normally would happen during the show will be shifted. So I'm going to let Tia have an opportunity to speak before we get to the commercial break, and then we're going to come back and we'll continue on with this discussion this evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. My name is Tia, and I am also a survivor of domestic violence. I am 36 years old. I just turned 36. Sometimes it feels like I'm older than that, but due to my life experiences, but I'm also grateful to be here. I'm kind of happy that I got a chance to go last because it's amazing how my story has bits and pieces of everyone else's story. I too dated a guy that was much older than me. When I first met him, I was 18, he was 36. And then it just kind of progressed from there. I mean, the violence the domestic violence started kind of subtle, and it almost was like I didn't realize I was in a domestic violence situation. It started off as like horse playing, and then it turned to like the punches getting harder, and I started to get bruises on my arm. And then I remember the punches moved from my arm to my face. And one night in particular, my great grandmother was really sick, and we took care of her at home, so we were her home takers. And I reported for a shift. My mom was the first shift, I was the second shift, and we did 12-hour shifts. So I remember going to work and having to explain to my mom why I had a black eye. And it was really hard, and it was really embarrassing. But of course, like someone else mentioned before, like you continue to go back, and you kind of don't know why you go back, but in the back of your mind you do, because you know, like, oh, the abuse is not happening every day, or, you know, he really didn't mean it, or he'll bring flowers to kind of disguise the situation, and you continue to go forward. And from black eyes, it went to fighting every day. I remember one story in particular. We were visiting his mom out of town, and there was a big fight. So he got into a fight with his mom and his other family member, and then he ended up getting into a fight with me, and we were getting ready to leave. It was in the middle of the night, and he ended up taking all his anger out on me and kicking me in the middle of the street. And I had a bruise from my stomach down to my thigh. And I felt almost like Sister Tamar, like everyone is around and no one is helping you. You kind of feel helpless. You kind of feel like you have nowhere to go. Like no one, you know, like this is the end. I remember for years being in a really dark spot. And I know when people talk about dark spots, you know, it's, you know, it has different meanings for them. I remember contemplating suicide multiple times because I felt like there was no end. I did break away, I did get away, and something kept on drawing me back. I ended up getting my own spot. I ended up staying on my cousin's couch. I also remember my breaking point, as someone mentioned, is helping. I'm sorry, I think my thing. Okay, hopefully you guys can still hear me. I remember helping him get back and forth to work, and then one day he got upset because he wanted to get a vehicle, and I'm like, that vehicle doesn't sound good because it has check engine lights on, so I'm not going to help you get a vehicle. This is after we kind of, you know, lived in different quarters, and he ended up flicking a cigarette inside my car. We ended up getting back to his house, and he ended up like tussling with me and choking me, and his words were, I'm gonna kill you. So I ended up fighting him off, and then that was my breaking point, like, you will never touch me again. And from there I, you know, meant every word of that. And then years after, I ended up, you know, running into people that were associated with him, and, you know, them telling me stories on how they would drive him around looking for my place of residence, and, you know, kind of things like that. You never feel safe. And I know it was the truth because one time he did call, even though I changed my numbers many times, to tell me what my apartment looks like from the outside. And you never feel safe, like, after that point. I do have to say, like, I do agree with Tamar in regards to letting people know that it's not your fault, letting people know that therapy is okay. You know, I can speak for me. I started therapy when I was with him. I stopped it for a while, and now that years beyond that relationship, I still have triggers, and I notice them, and I'm aware of them, and therapy helps. And it's okay to get help. It's okay to have bad days. It's okay to have good days. But my message is for people to know that they can survive, they can get help. They don't always have to be like a victim. Yes, that's part of your life, but you can move past it and you can live a better life. and knowing that there's help. I know, like, I felt isolated. I did also get accused of cheating and, you know, family members and not wanting to be around certain people because, you know, my family's huge. So if he doesn't know this particular person, it's going to be like, oh, you're dealing with him or you're talking to him. Like, you know, I know that fear and I understand it, but know that there's almost like a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, you know, you too can survive. And thank you for this opportunity. This is also my first, so I hope I'm not rambling.
No, that's okay. And just want to shout out to management. They allowed us to go commercial free this evening. But just want to mention a few things that are happening from Caribbean Power Jam Radio that you would have heard in the commercials. Jammers Ball, the annual event from Caribbean Power Jam Radio, will be taking place Saturday, January 1st. Once again, that's the annual Jammers Ball. So all you jammers out there, and even everybody that's out there listening to the gallery and everybody that's listening to Caribbean Power Jam Radio on the app and all throughout the world, if you are in the New York City area, do make sure you get your tickets for the Jammers Ball, once again taking place Saturday, January 1st. And of course, as you would hear in the commercials as well, this is an election year for New York City. So very early, early voting started already. So just get out there and vote. Vote your conscience. You know, vote based on, you know, who you feel is best. This mayoral, I know I'm pronouncing that word wrong. Mayoral election is very important this year. Even though I know the winner is going to win by a landslide anyway, I don't think it's virtually impossible at this point. You know, you would have heard Eric Adams on one of the commercials if we had the commercial break. But at this point, I don't think that Curtis Lee was actually going to
prevail
at all. They would have had to have, you know, Republicans would have had to have a better opponent. But so big up to Eric Adams. And once again, you know, everybody out there, be safe during this time. I know that those are watching on the video, you'll see a lot of social distancing right now, but we're taking care of ourselves behind the scenes. You know, everybody washes their hands and does what they got to do. So cleanliness is the key during this time. So as well, so just do what you got to do to be safe. So once again, also anybody that wants to advertise the Caribbean Power Jam Radio, I'll get the number for you just now as well. You can always contact the studio. Or just go to CaribbeanPowerJamRadio.com, and for everybody that wants to advertise on this station. So once again, all of you that got businesses that want to promote and want to advertise on this show and all the shows here in Caribbean Power Jam Radio, just feel free to do so. So once again, just wanted to make those announcements as management to give us an opportunity to go commercial free for this evening based on the topic that we are speaking about this evening, which is very important. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, we're just shifting a lot of things. Probably towards the end of this program, we'll be getting to our looking forward segment of the gallery right here, where we'll be playing music from the up and coming stars out there. And so we'll be doing that towards the end of the show. And I'll do the health tip towards the end of the show as well. And of course, end it off the show with a positive note, as we normally do. So in the meantime, everybody out there that's watching, just continue to share. It's the gallery, DAGALLERY. Once again, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Mixcloud, as well as on YouTube. And of course, you can watch us live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as we are right now. So wherever you're watching, just share and invite, let everybody know that we are here. Once again, we are speaking to 6 people this evening with various spectrums of domestic violence as we are coming to the close of Domestic Violence Month. And for Tamar and Tia, if you're listening, I just have y'all on mute right now because I gotta figure out something because I have that static coming in when I have y'all talking. And but we definitely gonna get y'all engaged in the next part of the conversation as well. So, and this question could go to anybody, and then I'll look and see if Tamar and Tia want to answer this as well. As we're getting to the close of Domestic Violence Month, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. What is it that you would like people to know even beyond this month? Because once again, you know, everybody focuses just on the 1 month, and this is the opportunity to, like, you had an event this month. Many people have events this month, and then it seems like, with the exception that, you know, you have your foundation which operates throughout the year, that everybody else is just basically just ignoring the subject. But what would you like people to know beyond this month? You know, when it comes to November 1st, you're like, what is it that people can do to be aware of what's going on?
I would like to take away, or I want people to take away that domestic violence is your business. If it happens across the streets, it happens next door, it happens, down the block, and you see it, you hear about it, it's your business. And it actually is your responsibility to call 911, do what you can. Just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean that it's not your business, because guess what? We all live in the same community. And like a speaker said at Purple Power on Sunday, the operative word, base word in community is unity. Right. The only way that we can get rid of domestic violence is if we work together. People shouldn't have to feel like they're alone and that no one cares, seeing them being beaten in the street and do nothing. That is against humanity. If you're called a human being, it is your responsibility, if you see another human being in trouble, to do something. You might not be able to jump in, call 911. Everybody has a phone. It is your responsibility, anything that's happening in your community. And I'm talking not just about the Caribbean community, although the Caribbean community, we do have to learn that it is our business. It's the New York State community, it's the American community, it's the world community. Things that happen with other human beings around us is always our business. Yes. I want survivors of domestic violence, everyone who's alive. To me, once you're alive and you're experiencing domestic violence right now, you are a survivor, you're not a victim, because you're still alive. My mom is a victim because she's dead. You're still alive, you're a survivor, and there's so many resources out there that you can find help. They have the domestic violence hotline, which is 24/7 in America, and the number is 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. And you can call them at any time, 24/7 in any state, and they refer you to resources in your neighborhood that can help you.
I see out there, Tia had her hand up. I don't know if she had something else that she wanted to add.
Yes. I wanted people to know that beyond, the 31st, that you have to say something. I know that when Tamar was talking, she said that, she kept things to herself, and I was one who did it too. It wasn't until I started saying something that, people started to help and say it more than once. I know for me, I said it to, people in our community and it didn't work. It wasn't until I said it to other people that, I started to get the help or started to get the courage that I needed to do to save my life ultimately. Definitely say something, do something, for those to pivot off of what the sister was just saying. It is our responsibility and our duty to help people, and it's gonna be okay. Sometimes you have that fear, like, I have no clothes, I have nowhere to go, it's gonna be okay. You just have to take that initial step. You have to say something, you have to do something.
And we thank you for that. As we just mentioned, in terms of the Caribbean community, this subject, I guess, is something that's...
It's a stigma.
Yes, I didn't want to. Well, I wouldn't put a negative, but it's something. It's something that happens.
Call it what it is. It's a stigma.
It happens regular. It does happen regularly, without notice, without any intervention, and as those okay. So, as we are here in the United States, and as cultures are crossing paths as we're here. As you just mentioned, it's a stigma that happens amongst Caribbean people. Do you see any improvement, or do you see any hope down the line, however, in this subject?
Any hope? Well, I can say there is hope due to the fact, we're all survivors. I went through what I went through for years. I was too afraid to say anything, but eventually, once I did reach out for help, contacting my mom and my family, because I was out on my own. I didn't want to contact anyone. When I finally did, I reached out, I called the police, and then I did call the hotline, Safe Horizon. They picked me up immediately.
Yes.
So the thing how I got away, I called them. They told me to go to the nearest precinct.
Yes.
They picked me up. I had one bag, just clothes for my kids, nothing for myself. They took me to the nearest, domestic violence shelter out of the borough.
Right.
And from there, I got the help that I needed. I got counseling. I spoke to social workers. I let them know I had nothing. They helped me, with food and a place to, reside, because I was in school and I had a job, but I had nowhere to go because I was living with him. Right. So, I just want to let everyone out there know that, if you are going through this, there is hope. Never be ashamed to say anything. Exactly. Never be ashamed if you have to just drop and leave everything. Get out that situation and, do what you got to do.
Right. And you ready, Ben?
Okay.
And also to piggyback off of what Ben was saying and also what you were just saying just now, it is a stigma. Don't be ashamed. If you yourself know exactly when you're in that situation, you know it within yourself. You might not be able to admit it to others, but there is a time when you might tell a girlfriend because you might not want to tell a family member. And sometimes the feedback you would get, and I can say from my own experience, girl, y'all be all right tomorrow. Don't worry about that. Y'all gonna be good tomorrow. No, there is no such thing as being good after being hit. There is no such thing as being good after being hit. Continue to pursue, continue to be vigilant and push on to make sure he is hurting me. He is hurting me. I can't be in this situation anymore. I have to get out of this situation, and let whoever it is that you're telling know, I am serious. This is a serious situation, because God forbid, in the terms of Nicole's mother, now that person is going and you're like, oh wow, I should have took her more seriously. No. Be vigilant about it. Speak out. Tell someone that you know is going to take your word for face value to help you out, especially if you're not strong enough to get out of it yourself. You have to reach out for help. And as the other young lady on the phone said, if you see something, say something. We have this other stigma amongst the African American community about snitching. When it comes to domestic violence, it is not snitching. It is not snitching. This is not a game on a corner. We're not running dice on the block. We're not spinning the block. We're not getting the bag. That's not what it is. When it comes to domestic violence, it is not snitching. It starts as young as teenagers. You see the habits in them. You hear the talk, and you're walking down the street and you hear how a young man is talking to another young lady. And I had told Nicole and Dionne before Purple Power, we had a meeting, and I went somewhere and coming back home, and just to see how this teenage boy was holding on to this teenage girl, you could tell it wasn't a hold of love. It was a hold of possession. It was a hold of possession. She does not belong to you. She does not belong to you. She is not your property. And that's what tends to happen. They tend to turn around and treat you as their property, and that they can control what happens with you, around you, surrounding you, and isolate you from anything else. Mm-hmm. So it's not snitching. I just want, after October, for everyone to continue to be vigilant about domestic violence, whether it's young, whether it's old, and to try to lift the stigma off of it, not to be ashamed, not to be embarrassed. Because if we can be here and not be ashamed, you can do it too. It takes time, and it takes a lot of strength and courage and definitely bravery to be vulnerable and let your story be known, but you can do it too.
I just want to read out some of the comments to those that are listening. Manta's been putting a lot of comments out there. She just wants to encourage everybody that's speaking to continue to stay strong. And she puts this out for everybody, just feel free to tell your story and don't be ashamed. If the situation comes up, just cry out. So everybody that's out there in the app, you can put your comments there, and everybody that's watching on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, you can do so as well. You can also call us up if you have any questions or comments as well, 718-393-5385. You can feel free to call us up in the studio, 718-393-5385. And just call us up if you have any questions or any comments, anything that you want to add to what's going on this evening. But go ahead.
Can I continue with regard to hope? There is hope. We have to educate our children. As Faye-Anne mentioned, it happens as early as teenage years. So there's a program, an initiative that started in Arizona called Bloom 365, and you can look it up online, bloom365.org. And what they do, they have a curriculum where they go into junior high schools and high schools and teach teens about teen dating violence, bullying, domestic violence from an early age to cause intervention, which will cause prevention. And it has caused a lot of prevention where young people have come forward and said after going through that curriculum, it's like going to health ed, but you're having Bloom 365, the curriculum. And and they've admitted, I was like this, and now I learned that this is wrong. This is the right way. This is a healthy relationship versus an unhealthy relationship. And so we have partnered with them to bring that program initiative to New York City schools. And so we're still working on making partnerships here. And I have a lot of hope with regards to our young people in our community here.
And going through anybody can answer this question as well, just going through domestic violence training. This was like a few years ago, maybe about 5 or so years ago. Maybe I don't want to tell too much of my age. There was a debate within that training, because as was mentioned, if you want to get out of the situation, just call a hotline to get out the situation immediately. There was a discussion in terms of whether one of the first steps should actually be, as mentioned, going to the precinct and getting a restraining order. Some said no, because that would just make the person angrier. And a restraining order is not a brick wall. It's just a piece of paper that somebody would have to basically litigate after anything that happened, after they escalate, after knowing that you got the restraining order. And then other people said, yes, get it, because that is a form of protection, because if anything escalates, then you can basically have witnesses involved. So I just wanted to know if anybody had an opinion on that as well.
Well, I agree and disagree.
Right.
So as far as with the restraining order, because I had numerous of them, so it may make the person more angry, but indeed it does protect you.
Right.
So it may not protect us to the full extent, like, okay, if we see the person in the street and we're carrying it, that does not mean that they may not try to harm us.
Right.
But indeed it does protect you. Like, look at my incident.
Right.
He did what he did numerous times. I made numerous reports, and if I never reported it, and you see by accident I killed him, and that report helped me get out of jail because
Right.
they see that I was a victim.
Right.
I would kept asking for help, and like I said again, it would make them angry, but in my opinion, it helped me out tremendously.
Right.
I could have did 25 years to life, and I did 9 months. So I believe it helps.
Right.
I also have the same opinion of agreeing and disagreeing, definitely to get a restraining order, because it keeps that track record.
Yes.
In my situation, I did get my restraining order. It definitely pissed him all the way off. That doesn't mean to stop being vigilant about doing what you're doing. Every single time, yes, go ahead. Yes, continue to file your reports. We know in reality, the outcome isn't always as good as your outcome, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
There are some women who have files and files and files and restraining orders after restraining order, and still, some way, somehow, that abuser is still able to get to that person. We do know that happens. We're not saying it's flawless, that it's a foolproof system and not the way to go. It's still definitely, for me, the way to go. It does help. It does help.
And as we just mentioned, those are some of the discussions that people have when speaking about that, because the paperwork is not like a physical protection, but it's a track record. So as things begin to escalate, as your case, where you could have been in prison right now, wouldn't be able to sit here and tell your story. There was a track record of what was happening. So would it be like, oh, there was definitely self-defense in your case?
Yes.
And I'm gonna ask if Tia or Tamar have anything to say as well.
I agree and disagree as well with the ladies. It is a piece of paper, and sometimes, depending in the area, when you call the police, it may take them longer to get there. So you almost feel like you are not protected by the court system. But I do like the track record. I do like having that paper trail in the event something happens. It's just like, an extra protection for that if it escalates. But in that moment, of course, it's going to piss them off because one, I know in my situation, the individual didn't want to feel embarrassed. He didn't want to have his business out there. So like to know that, oh, now you're in a court system, now there's this piece of paper, it says 100 feet sometimes, is like, well, who's gonna stop him, that type of thing. But definitely protect yourself, definitely do what you need to do in order to ensure your safety in your life and, in some cases your children's lives, because survivors of, children that survive certain experiences, they still have to live with that as well.
Right. And as is being awesome, can you put or mention? I'll put it out in the chat. The domestic violence number that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Oh, it's 1-800-799-7233, and that's the domestic violence hotline. It's national in America.
So once again, that's going to be put out in the chat on Facebook. I'll spread it around as well. That would be the number for the national hotline for domestic violence, as we have somebody calling in. Welcome to the gallery. Good evening. You'll have to call back. I apologize for that. Once again, call back. But once again, 718-393-5385 is the. I'll let the. Okay. Welcome to the gallery.
Hello, did you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, because I guess you weren't hearing me. I'm saying good night to the ladies, the survivors.
Good night. Good night.
Good night. I commend you on your strength and for telling your story, because I know it's not an easy thing to do. Mm-hmm. And each one of your stories resonated with me, because I've had it as a child. I saw it happen to my mom. Mm-hmm. Then I grew up and it happened to me. I severed that relationship, got into another relationship long term, and it happened again. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy thing, and I commend you for telling your story, because hearing your story made me relive mine. Had me in tears, of course, but that made me realize that I'm not healed. I might think I have healed, but no.
Right.
And it's still a process. It's years later, and it's still, so surreal, so fresh.
Yeah.
And like the last person was saying, sometimes it's hard when you reach out for help, and help is not there, because where I was living and I tried to go with my kids, when I called the cops and they came, and he ran away. So they didn't get to him. But when they gave me the numbers to call, there was no help. There was no accommodation for me and my children, and I have 2 children, and there was no accommodation for us, So they was asking me to stick it out, and they had me sleep in that same house that night. But it was never the same. That night was my breaking point, but I still moved on, mm-hmm. and allowed that man to come right where I move and do the same thing to me again.
Wow.
And people might think it's easy, but it's not. It's not easy, especially when you see this person as your life partner.
Yeah.
You start to blame yourself for their mistakes, mm-hmm. and you try your best to make it right.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's going through any form of domestic violence, right, I appeal with you, even if you have children, paying for the children doesn't do good to the children. It doesn't do them anything. You need to leave. Find the courage some way, somehow, to walk away. For anyone who's listening to this program, and is experiencing any form of domestic violence, even if it's mentally, you need to leave. Find the courage, find the strength, especially if children are involved, because it messes the children up.
Yes.
Because I've watched my firstborn think it's okay to hit people because he saw me upsetting. So he thinks it's okay to hit other girls that he has had as girlfriends. So young, 25, and hitting girls, hitting them more than once. You know, because when we say we don't do anything for them, we hurt them more than we say, you know, thinking we're holding on to our family to save them. It hurts them more than anything else.
Yeah.
It's like what kind of therapy I will have to have and, you know, be involved in if he's even willing to go to fix himself. But it's a real serious situation, and the sin ourselves. It seems in so many different directions. Parents, when you say what you encourage affects so many lives down the road.
Yes.
So even if you don't want to walk away for yourself, walk away for the person who it might be affected.
Yes.
Especially for your children, walk away for your children's sake. So once again, I commend you ladies for telling your story, for the bravery, because I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy. For the ones who are able to tell it and you know, have healed somehow, because the tears are not there and you're reliving it, but you know, you're still being strong. I commend you. I thank you for coming over here and sharing your story with us. May God continue to bless you and keep you women strong.
Thank you. Same to you.
And we thank you for calling out.
Good night.
And good night to you.
I'm going to just piggyback on what she said in regards to the children. A lot of people don't know, my oldest daughter, she was the oldest of the 3 children, so she more knew what was happening. She ended up in a domestic violence relationship as a result of what she witnessed me go through. And it was a situation where she was in the relationship, you know, and she did get out and she moved someplace else. And what the woman said, the person got to her, got in her head, and she brought them back into the home. She didn't want to tell me. And then when I found out, and she wasn't even in the same state with me, so that made it even more traumatizing for me. So I had to get, we had to contact the police. We had to get her out of that house. But I felt so much to blame. I took so much blame on for that, because I felt like because of what she saw with what I dealt with, that's how come she ended up where she ended up, you know?
Yeah, I think we kind of take it upon ourselves and, like you say, put the blame on ourselves. Like, we're to blame because we, quote unquote, allow these things to happen. And when you think that children are not seeing or not overhearing, oh no, they hear everything, especially if there's siblings in the house. They're speaking amongst each other on exactly what transpired last night or what was said the night before. And they keep those things inside and they have to grow up with those things. And if it was okay for mommy to get talked down to and slapped around a couple of times, then my boyfriend can do the same to me, or I could smack my girlfriend every now and then because my mother was cool with it and she ain't ever leave. So we have to, kind of break the generational cycles of it being a repetitive thing and continuing to go on. That the last caller that called in, like I told you guys in the beginning of the program, that was my story. Leaving one abuser and getting with another abuser, thinking once again, that's not going to happen to me again. That could never happen to me again. And it happens, and it happens.
And it's not even your fault.
And you don't know if, like Dionne said, you blame yourself. You blame yourself. Like, how did I end back up here after I said never again?
And I want to say that what happens in childhood when you're a child and you experience domestic violence, I mean, you see it, you witness it, you're learning. So your brain is creating synapses that is against your will. You create maybe defense mechanisms. You don't even know how. Your brain, you're learning, and you're thinking this is normal, right? So even though on the outside, this is not going to happen to me, you've already created these synapses of your exposure as a child when you're most, you're a sponge. And so if you're exposed to traumatic stuff, it becomes normalized in your brain. And then you end up in the same situation. You're like, how did I get here? Because that's what you learned. Yeah. And it's like, it's like against your will until there's some type of intervention that happens on purpose in your life.
Yeah. And then to turn it over to Tamar, she has going to say, and at the same time, also, I know she's doing a fundraiser this month as well. So I'm just going to have an opportunity to say what she wants to say and also mention that as well.
So in regards to the restraining orders, I'm all for it. In my situation, I did not go that route. I just could not bring myself to go that route. I did not, and this is just me, I don't know if it's crazy or not, but just not wanting to do that whole court thing, restraining order, custody battle. Like I personally just did not want to go through that. And I just feel like the creator intervened in my situation because, my ex at this point ended up going to jail for other things, and that was like my freedom. Like, although the relationship had ended, still dealing with him because of the children, it was just like, okay, I can breathe, and I just took that opportunity to just rebuild my life and move on and do what I had to do for me and my children. So that's what I want to say about the restraining order. There about the children as well. So because my oldest daughter witnessed one of the physical altercations, and she witnessed the arguments and the verbal attacks and things, she still to this day, it's been about 7 years, and she will randomly say, do you remember when daddy punched you in the face? And it still like just throws me off. Right. But we sit and we talk about it, and she understands that is not the correct way, to handle things. That is not how a man is supposed to treat a woman. And I do this and started talking about my experiences and wanting to get involved with domestic violence awareness for my children and to help other women understand that if we stay in these situations, we're doing more damage, to the next generation. And as the sister mentioned, her daughter ended up in a situation, that is the ultimate thing that we don't want to happen with our children. So we have to, the aftermath of that is counseling, with our children individually, family counseling, to make sure that they're able to express themselves and just fully understand what they were experiencing, witnessing those unhealthy situations. And then you mentioned my fundraiser. So yes, for this month, I created an online fundraiser, Love is Peace, Not Violent. It's a t-shirt that I created with custom link. And the shirt is $20. We have about 6 days left in the campaign. If you purchase a t-shirt, the proceeds actually will be going towards the Mary Kay Foundation. I am a Mary Kay beauty consultant, and I'm quite sure many people are not aware that although it's cosmetics and, beauty products, Mary Kay Foundation, they're very, very involved with providing funding and resources for survivors of both domestic violence and breast cancer. So if you would like to support the campaign, I can be contacted. I'm gonna throw my number out there, 929-266-4947, 929-266-4947, or mklovethyself@gmail. mklovethyself@gmail.
And as Mary Kay just mentioned, Mary Kay was one of the sponsors for your event
Sunday, yes.
on Sunday that just took place. So as was mentioned, there are many corporations that are actually, within this entire fight and just making sure that everything is made aware. And once again, not just this month.
Yes.
So now you mentioned you're 10 years strong with your power, with the Purple Power. How is it, on the business end of it, like in terms of getting all the sponsorship and everybody together, is that very difficult, or do you find that corporations are like, oh, they like the idea and they just want to jump in?
It's a bit difficult.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah, we end up getting more help from actually local businesses than the bigger corporations. And we would like more sponsorship, so if you'd like to help us, you can reach us at heatherhurleyfoundation.org. Can I also put our number there?
Yeah.
Also, it's Heather Hurley Foundation can be reached at 646-968-0055. And we actually have a resident social worker right now, a licensed clinical social worker that we can refer you to if you need resources and you need therapy. I'm really big on therapy. I think we all are, and that's the difference, intervention that was made in our lives, and God.
Yes.
I see that. So
And mention that number once again. 646.
It's 646-968-0055.
That's once again for the Hurley Foundation. I'll put the spelling out there in the chat as well. But you can also find them at the HeatherHurleyFoundation.org.
Yes.
Also on Facebook, the Heather Hurley Foundation. Heather Hurley, and on Instagram as well.
Yes.
So if you want to support that foundation, do sponsorship, or if you have any resources that you would like to add to the foundation, you can just feel free to contact the Heather Hurley Foundation. Once again, the HeatherHurleyFoundation.org or Heather Hurley Foundation on Facebook and then Instagram. And you'll see it. It'll pop right up.
Yeah, I just want to let them know of a really cool project that we're doing in Uganda. It just so happens that we're helping 15 families there, 15 women. We remove them from violent situations and put them in safer environments. And of the 15 women, they have 55 children, and we take care of them. So most of the proceeds go towards them there. And we've created a boutique, and where they can be able to learn how to sew, so they can learn to be self-sufficient. We give a few of them who have business plans micro grants, so they can start their own businesses, so they wouldn't go back to their abuser. So it's a really cool project that we have there. It's called Marembe Peace Village, Marembe African Village. Sorry, Marembe means peace in Lugandan, so it's Marembe African Village, and that can be found on Instagram as well.
Also mention in Israel the Safer app. Definitely mention that.
Yeah, we just partnered with the Israeli-based app called Safe Up, SAFE Up. Look for it, download it. It's a safe environment of women guardians all over the world. It's run by GPS. So say you're going on a date and you might feel a little unsafe. You can go to the bathroom and just click a button, and all the guardians in your vicinity will know that you need help, and they can call 911. They're trained, and you actually can be trained also if you want to be a guardian through the app. So that's Safe Up. You could download that.
And as we were speaking about, good thing you mentioned your overseas contacts. As we were speaking about the stigma in the Caribbean, and probably one of the reasons why things are like that is because the laws overseas are not necessarily the laws are not the same as they are here. Where some things are, I guess, on the underline accepted, even though of course they might have some rules in terms of violence itself.
Or as we say, swept under the rug.
Or swept under the, but some things are just like, okay, that happened, it happened, and
Yeah.
you know, even if a woman may cry out in other countries, they may not be heard as opposed to hear, which I guess is one of the reasons why many people, amongst many reasons, you know, people come here. But and you jump from one problem to the next problem, but that's a whole different story. But do you find, like, you know, in dealing with just dealing with women in other countries, that is the major roadblock against the laws just not being, I guess, up to speed in terms of domestic violence or domestic abuse?
I think I would say laws and religious bylaws. I just want to be clear on that. Actual laws and then religious bylaws. You have to remember, in other countries overseas, whether it's in the Caribbean, the UK, or wherever, religion plays, to me, a heavier part of a woman's life, and what is dictated to what her quote-unquote role is to be in a marriage and in a relationship, and what is to be quote-unquote accepted. So I do find, in my opinion, that it is definitely harder because of the traditions that's passed on and what you are expected to do as a woman overseas, as far as where domestic violence is concerned, as far as not speaking out. Don't say a word. It happened to me, it's gonna happen to you.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. Or in the Caribbean, oh, she get beat yesterday. She get beat all the time. Like, and that's an okay thing. And it's not an okay thing.
Right.
It's not okay.
And I'm just going to throw in on the religious aspect. I don't think that there's any actual religion that actually promotes violence to that extent. I think it's more about the interpretation of what people are reading. And that's, you know, once again, all religion, you know, just speaking from primarily a biblical point of view, it's the interpretation that people see or people read, and then want to give that, like you mentioned, that just giving off their traditions, as opposed to what's actually read. So I just wanted to put that out there, that for those that are, regardless of the religion that you're in, and especially those that are primarily biblical based, you know, Christianity, you know, Judaism, you know, Israelites, everybody that's pretty much biblical based, and then even on Islam with the Quran, that, you know, it's more an interpretation that people are giving as opposed to, you know, just read for yourself.
Right.
And, you know, get the interpretation for yourself. I just want to throw that out there so that people don't feel that they're handcuffed based on scripture, when actually certain scriptures don't actually say the things that people are actually saying.
Right.
And also, you know, as with the time that we have left, you know, as, you know, coming out of, you know, these scenarios, I'm hearing a lot about counseling, intervention, because, you know, just going through the trauma and just getting out of it is not enough. No. You know, you need some sort of resource to basically help you get your life, you know, to normal. So what advice do you give to people in terms of that, in terms of seeking that type of intervention, and what has that counseling done for you? Because, you know, for you, you know, directly, you weren't, like I said, a direct, and I don't want to say it in a way like that as though you didn't feel the brunt of it, but, you know, you were raised in that trauma, but you still had to get out of it. And then everybody else, you know, they actually physically, you know, went through that trauma, and they still had to do what they had to do to get out of it. So what advice do you give to people in terms of seeking that counsel or that intervention to help them carry on with their lives?
Well, I didn't mention this, but I did experience domestic violence with my ex-husband. So, and I left that situation. But I love therapy. As a child, I had to have therapy. And my first therapist I actually fired because I realized she didn't really care. So then my family got me another one that was better, and my brother and sister did from a very early age. And that was the intervention that we needed to know, to start creating new connections in our minds that this is not normal. Right. This is a healthy relationship as opposed to what you've been taught all your life. So that was very important. So I always advocate for people to seek therapy, because, I mean, why not? These people are trained to help you, and don't listen to anyone who says you're crazy. You know, I know it's taboo in the Caribbean community, but who cares? These people are trained. Okay, they went to school, they paid for school to learn how to help you. So why not take advantage of that? It helps me.
Yes. Therapy for me helped because it was an unbiased opinion, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, like going to help for friends while you're in that situation sometimes does not help. So after finally overcoming and getting out of that situation, you need an ear that you can just unload everything on for them to not judge you, because being abused, you feel judged. You feel that there's eyes on you all the time. So for me, that's what counseling did for me and therapy did for me. It helped me to not feel judged anymore. I don't have to feel guilty. It wasn't my fault. And there's someone who's listening to me, genuinely listening and letting me get everything out.
I just want to piggyback on what you said. I was speaking to someone and I wasn't talking like for therapy's sake, but it was just a conversation. And I was basically, she knows, the situation that I went through before, right? And then I explained, I think she asked me like, oh, where's that person? I was like, I had to end that relationship, because it was abusive. You ain't tired? And I just shut down after that, because it's like that's not what you do.
Right.
That's not what you do. So going to, as you said, like to friends or family or whatever, it definitely that's not it, because you're gonna feel worse. So it's definitely important to speak to, as you said, someone who is unbiased and get help, because that Caribbean, they believe in that tough love thing, and it doesn't work all the time.
Right.
It's not okay.
And I also want to add, it did help me as well. So I got help from the STEPS program. They helped me while I was incarcerated, because I seeked for the help. I knew I had a problem, and like you said, speaking to family members, it helps, but it didn't help that I need, the help that I needed. Right. So once I reached out to the STEPS program, they stayed with me during my time, the lady that helped me. And once I came home, I stayed with that same person. So for a while, it took me, because I had to adjust to where I was at. Once I came home, it was hard, because I had to adjust to being with my kids again and being back in the real world. So once I did the therapy, it took me about 2-3 years, but I was able to go back to work and, do for my children and, get out the depression stage that I was in. So again, I agree with that, what everyone said. And yes, therapy is a good thing for me.
And I'm gonna, because Tamar and Tia have something to say as well. I also want to shout out everybody that's watching. Ruhama on YouTube was mentioning just to stay strong to everybody. We'll go back and read some comments real quick. She said, very courageous women to share the truth about being abused, and she gives respect to you all. And she's also hurting for her younger sisters as well. Once again, just thanking everybody for tuning in this evening, everybody that's supporting through their comments as well throughout the evening. Shout out to Barrington Levy, who's watching as well. Big up to him. Just big up to you. And hopefully, as you're watching, I can get you in the studio at some point for the gallery. That's a whole different story. But shout out to Barrington Levy for watching. Once again, Tamar and T, I know they had something to say as well.
Hi, yes. I definitely agree with the therapy part. I know I previously said that I am currently in therapy. I started therapy when I was still in that situation. And then after I left, I recognized that I didn't like the person that I was becoming, the person that I kind of developed into as kind of a protective mechanism. And therefore, I decided to go back into therapy. And I also think that it's important that we recognize triggers. I know I said it before, like sometimes you could be like, oh yeah, I'm good. And then you could have like a memory or something happens and it brings you back into that place that you were, and you kind of like almost revert back into being in that situation. Therapy helps. Talking to an unbiased person helps. Talking it out, letting them know that like, hey, this happened and it made me think of this situation and it led to one thing and it led to another thing. Therapy is like one of the best things that I could recommend to anyone in any type of situation, but definitely especially a domestic violence survivor or someone that's going through anything. and continue it. Don't be like, oh yeah, I went to 10 sessions and I'm good now. Like sometimes you may be good at the moment, but you know, 3 years from now, you realize that you're not.
Right.
And it's okay to go back into therapy. It's okay to talk to somebody. It's okay, like, not to necessarily relive it, but to work through it. So definitely continue it. If you're not in it, definitely get into it. And don't always have that stigma that, you know, our community has, you know, like, oh, you crazy, or, oh, you don't need to talk to nobody. Oh, just pray. You know, the Most High is awesome and he's great. And of course he's going to help you. But sometimes you need to also talk to somebody else.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I love therapy. It is so soothing. And I'm not one to say that, oh, I'm gonna get to a point and I'm not gonna ever need it again. Because like Tia mentioned, you know, you still have those triggers, you know, dealing with other people. They may do things, you know, unbeknownst to them that trigger, you know, that trauma of your past. And you just have to be able to work through it. So therapy for me has been amazing. I had to learn how to be sane. Like I had gotten to a point to where I felt I lost my mind. Like I did not know if I was coming or going. And then with all of the craziness that was going on, I still feel I was going through like postpartum, and not really recognizing that. So I felt depleted and I just needed to get a grip, you know, on my whole mindset to be able to function as a person, as a woman, as a mother, especially, and then as a daughter, because I'm a caregiver to my mother. So I had to just I could care less about what people had to say about therapy. I'm an advocate for that. Mental health matters. Yes. And at the end of the day, we all have to like and love what we see in the mirror, and that's what's most important.
That's right. That's right.
And as we are coming to a close of the program this evening, I'm just going to allow everybody an opportunity to say a final word. But definitely, you know, as we were speaking about counseling just now, I believe that things such as this, you know, just having this roundtable discussion as well is sort of therapeutic. Yes. You know, just everybody being able to hear everybody's story, those that are listening. Shout out to Manta who called in.
Yes.
But everybody else that's out there that may not be saying anything, you know, people are attentive to, you know, everybody's story. Right. So, because you know, basically, you know, like I said earlier, you could just hear the emotions that are being spoken of from everybody's scenario, and you know, not, you know, one person's story is not greater than the next person, because a situation is a situation.
Right.
You know, as you know, speaking earlier, even, you know, speaking about Nicole's scenario, you know, her scenario is not less than anybody else, even though she mentioned it later on that she did, you know, personally feel it, but just the trauma of just knowing that your parents are gone, you know, even though one is, you know, gone and one is still alive, you know, basically your family just, you know, broken apart. So you just have to go through that. But I guess once again, you know, these sessions are basically therapeutic, so to speak, where everybody gets an opportunity to, you know, hear from one another, hear the stories. And for those that are going through this, you know, situation like this, know that, you know, when you see any of these signs, you know, it may start small. You want to make sure that you do something before it escalates. And you definitely want to reach out to somebody. Also listen to somebody, because people may be, as you mentioned, people may be telling you something and you're not listening, you know, throughout the process, and things are just getting worse and worse because you're in it, you're in love, and, you know, many people feel that that's the way that person expresses the love, and you may pull out for a moment, jump back in, but everybody on the outside is, you know, that actually cares about you is actually telling you what they're seeing. And they are your mirror. You know, they're seeing the things that you're not able to see because you're not looking at yourself in the mirror. You're looking at that person. But, you know, you just listen to what people are saying, and before things get too deep,
Yes.
You know, the national hotline is posted there. Just make sure you have that. And also for those that know somebody going through that, you want to make sure that you have that. You could call that number for somebody else. You know, just jump in, because you don't want to be responsible or feel no, you won't be responsible. You don't want to feel that you're responsible if something bad happens, because you don't want to watch somebody go through a scenario and then somebody loses their life, and then you be like, well, I could have done something else.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that you don't abandon your friends, and you do whatever you can to help them, even if you got to just physically get them into a safe house or something like that. Just do what you can. But once again, I'm just gonna get a final word from everybody. Started from Tia.
My final word is, first of all, thank you for allowing me to even share my story. Like I said, this is the first time that I have publicly shared my story. And I want everyone to know that there is help out there, and you deserve help. You deserve to live. And for anyone who feel like they are an abuser and can recognize a sign, get help. Yes. That's always the first step, is recognizing. Recognize if you're in a situation, and recognizing if you're doing the situation or if you're contributing to it, to get help. And, people are out there. There's avenues, there's help. Say something, you see something, do something, and let's just work together to help each other.
Yes.
And Tamar?
Yes. Thank you for asking me to be a part of this. As you mentioned, it is therapeutic for me in a lot of ways, to be able to speak publicly. And for anyone that is in this situation, seek help. Don't feel ashamed at all. It's not your fault. There is light at the end of the tunnel. It may not seem that way now, but trust and believe, you can get through it. As it has already been mentioned, there are resources available for you. And I just wish everyone well that is on the panel. Kwana, it is so good to hear you, and the strength in your voice of your story. I'm so happy and I'm so proud of you. The other ladies, thank you for sharing your stories. You have given me strength. Tia is my sister, and I'm so proud that you had the courage to share your story. And just let us keep doing this. Let's keep sharing and being supportive to others.
And thank you. So that was Tia Williams and Tamar Yisrael. And then we'll hear from Unique.
Okay, so my final words will be stay strong. Never feel that it's your fault. When you see that you're going through something, recognize it, try to get the help the best way you can.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. But I do want to close out with, I will have a documentary coming out soon. Awesome. And my book is called I'm Still Standing. That will be out soon as well. And I also just started a podcast. It's Straight Talk. It's STR, the number 8 Talk. That's my YouTube. And I'm just so glad that you gave me the opportunity to speak up here, and I got a chance to meet you ladies. And hopefully y'all can help me broad, All right. So thank you so much.
A shout out to your co-host for your Straight Talk.
Yes, I want to shout out my husband, Star the Star. Thank you so much. Okay.
That's beautiful.
So, so shout out to him. Shout out to your mother and your grandfather who was watching.
The whole Bell family.
Awesome. All of the bells that were watching throughout this program this evening. Dionne?
I just want to leave everyone with this, that there is life after trauma. Don't ever feel that this is it for you, that you have nothing else, because I thought that at first when I was studying to leave my ex-husband, I'm going to become a single mother. Do I want to do this? But I stepped out on faith, and I trusted the Lord, and I'm standing here today, and I am a strong, beautiful black woman.
Yes,
You hear me?
right.
Doing amazing things, and I give all the glory to God. So don't ever think that you know, there isn't life after the trauma or what you've been through that defines who you are. It doesn't.
And then just gonna skip over you and then hear from Miss Boom. Once again, I've seen her after 33 years.
Are we back with the years again?
Hopefully it won't not be another 33.
No,
Hopefully we're
it
alive to see.
definitely won't
Hopefully
be.
be alive 33 years from now, but hopefully it won't be another 33 years. But you know, I just want to thank you for helping putting this together, and on short notice as well.
Yes.
Just being able to and just congratulating you for hosting the event on Sunday.
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
continue to do that. And once again, just thank you for helping everything go smooth this evening.
Thank you. The ladies know, Dionne and Nicole know, anything last minute, call Faye. She's gonna get it done. And I literally get it done. I definitely want to thank my longtime friend Ben for inviting us all here on this panel. It's definitely informative. Abuse is not love. Domestic violence is not love. You deserve a healthy relationship. You deserve true love. Know your red flags, learn them, identify them, and do something about it. And stay strong and stay blessed. If we're survivors, you too can be a survivor.
And finally, Nicole Sharpe, the founder of the Heather Hurley Foundation.
So it was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy to meet all these very strong women. I derive strength from you guys too. Just remember that children are the most silent of the victims of domestic violence. Just because they're not saying anything doesn't mean they're not learning and they're not hurting inside. And unfortunately, without intervention, they'll either grow up to be a assailant or a victim of domestic violence, and we don't want that. So we want to create intervention with them, therapy, remove them from the situation. Therapy and my belief in God. I was raised to be atheist, but I started believing in God on my own at the age of 10. And reading the Bible, my father wouldn't allow that in the house, so I had to hide and read the Bible. So through that faith in God, that's what helped me and my brother and sister. And then therapy. So also want to say victims, not victims, you're survivors because you're still alive, like I said. You're not to blame, it's the assailant. The assailant is always invisible, see? Always invisible. We have to start holding them accountable for their crimes.
Yes.
As a people. And just remember the number, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. They'll help you wherever you are in the United States.
So once again, thanking all of you ladies for joining us this evening and having the strength to come up here and tell your stories, and just praying for continued healing for you all and everybody else out there that is going through a scenario. Because once again, even though they spoke about a situation in the past, they're still going through it. So once again, just praying for healing for everybody that's going through a situation such as this. And once again, thanking everybody out there that's tuned into the gallery. Just continue to share once the video goes down. Of course, you can continue to share the video on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Thank everybody for tuning in. Thanking management for allowing us to go commercial free this evening. Also, the health tip would have been about astragalus. I just mentioned a brief release. It's a legume, it's a bean, has protein, fiber, can help your liver, can help your brain, as well as your heart. So I just had to throw that out there. But of course, as I do, I always post a health tip afterwards. But also, the winner of the Looking Forward segment is Ralph Wanda. I'll actually end off the show with that. So once again, congratulations to him. And that's about it. So once again, as we do every week, the Empress Bradshaw sends us the quote so we could always end off the show on a positive note. She sends us this one: "It's okay to have some fear, worries, and doubts, but have the right amount of it. Cherish what you do have, and cherish this time despite the hardships that caused it." And until next time, saying God bless them. Once again, this is the winner of the Looking Forward segment from last week. It's Ralph Wanda's song called Bumper.
it out for your bumper, bumper, bumper. Girl, walk it out for your bumper, bumper, bumper. Girl, walk it out for your bumper, bumper, bumper. Girl, walk it out for your bumper. Man up here hot, man up here pan. Man, you tank some straight like a river now. Girl, them sugar me the boy them salt. Color straight me no sell like a ladder. We bust off this fake till clash down.
You're listening to Caribbean Power Jam Radio.
Please don't touch that dial. Power Jam will be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Caribbean Power Jam Radio. We're ready to give you service that caters to all your business, events, promotions, and marketing needs with competitive pricing. You've tried the rest. Now consult the best. Caribbean Power Jam will assist you in determining which type of packages will best meet your needs. Contact Caribbean Power Jam at 347-425-8227. We're located at 169 Remsen Avenue, Brooklyn, New York,